Ever notice how in those legal dramas, like, everything comes down to one tiny piece of evidence um, or a really intense cross-examination?
Yeah.
It's like all of a sudden you feel this weight of like justice or injustice.
For sure, for sure. It's super intense.
Yeah, and today we're kind of doing that, but in real life.
Hmm.
We're leaving the fictional courtroom and we're going into a story with even more twists and turns, I think.
Absolutely. I think, it's even wilder because it's real. And it can happen to anyone.
Exactly, yeah.
We're diving deep into Ben Spencer's story.
Yes.
This guy spent years in prison for something he just didn't do.
Didn't do.
And it's a long and, frustrating journey to finally prove his innocence.
Yeah.
We're going to be following along with a discussion actually led by Glenn Kirshner, the legal expert.
Oh, okay.
He was talking with somebody who knows this case really well, and they're drawing from the book Bringing Ben Home.
Bringing Ben home. Got it. Okay, so for everyone listening out there, today we really want to understand, like, all the different layers of this story and go beyond just the headlines.
Clearly.
See what it's like to be wrongfully convicted. What were the obstacles that Ben faced? What were the surprising things about his fight to be free?
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll all learn a little bit more about, how our justice system works and where it maybe needs some improvement.
For sure. And I think what's really cool about this is, it is based on a conversation, so we're going to get like a really personal view of what this whole legal battle was like.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, so let's jump right in. One of the things that really stood out to me was this whole thing with Ben and the parole board.
Yes.
They kept denying him parole. And at first glance, you might think, oh, he's not showing remorse. But the thing is, he couldn't show remorse for a crime he said he didn't commit.
Right. And that's where it gets, kind of crazy, right? It's this catch-22. Like, the system, it wants you to, admit you're wrong, show remorse to get parole. But if you're innocent, like Ben was saying, he was, then admitting guilt would be like the opposite of the truth.
Yeah.
He even said, his famous quote was, "Truth is more valuable than freedom." So for everyone listening, try to imagine like being in that spot, right? Like you're being forced to confess to something you didn't do just so you can have a chance to get out.
It's hard to imagine, really.
Really makes you think about what the system really cares about, in those situations.
Absolutely. And then, so he gets released in 2021, which, you think that's it.
Yeah, you'd think that's the end.
That's the happy ending, right?
Yeah.
But no, he's still, like, legally considered a convicted murderer.
Yeah.
And he's in this weird limbo waiting for the Court of Criminal Appeals to basically agree that, yeah, his trial wasn't fair.
Yeah, it's wild. Like, even when they know something is wrong, things can take forever in the legal system.
It's true.
Like the Court of Criminal Appeals, they had already said no to some stuff in his case before.
Oh, wow.
So the fact that they were even looking at it again was a big deal. Can you imagine, like, you're out of prison, but everyone still sees you as a convicted murderer?
It's a lot to carry.
That's a heavy weight.
Yeah. And this whole waiting period, it went on for 3 years.
3 years.
3 years. And during that time, get this, Ben and Deborah, they get married.
Wow.
Like, that's incredible to me.
That's amazing. Talk about commitment, right?
Yeah. To each other and to the truth, it's really something.
Yeah.
So finally, May 2024, the court says, yep, Ben didn't get a fair trial.
Finally. And, thinking about the bigger picture here, it was actually a smart legal move to focus on the fairness of the trial.
Oh.
Rather than, like, trying to prove he was innocent right then and there.
I see, yeah.
So what they did was they kind of shifted the responsibility. It was now up to the local district attorney, John Crusoe. He had to figure out, like, what to do next.
So the DA, she had a few choices, right?
Yeah.
Like, he could retry Ben, even though everyone knew the evidence wasn't strong.
Right.
He could just dismiss the charges, kind of like a neutral thing.
Yeah.
Or, and this is the big one, he could dismiss the charges because Ben was actually innocent.
That's the one.
Yeah.
That's the big one. But it's a much harder legal standard to meet.
So it sounds like it really came down to, like, the DA's judgment call.
Totally. And, he even tried to, like, make the case stronger. He granted what's called use immunity to Michael Hubbard to try and get a confession.
Oh, right.
And for those who aren't, like, legal experts, that basically means Hubbard could talk and they couldn't use what he said to directly put him on trial, right?
Oh, right. Okay.
But even with that, Hubbard still wouldn't confess.
So it really was up in the air, huh?
It was.
Yeah.
And it all came down to this, like, super intense hearing on August 29th, 2024. And get this, they held it in the same courtroom where Ben was convicted, not just once, but twice.
Oh, wow.
The atmosphere must have been like thick with emotion, you know?
I can only imagine, yeah.
I mean, hundreds of people wanted to be there. The courtroom only had like 80 seats.
Wow, so they were packed in.
Yeah, like sardines. I think it shows how much people were invested in Ben's story,
Yeah.
and they wanted to see justice happen.
Yeah. What's interesting is that even though there was lots of evidence showing Ben was probably innocent, like no DNA, an alibi, the witnesses changing their stories, there wasn't that one thing, like that smoking gun,
Exact.
that pointed to someone else.
They didn't have a confession from Hubbard or anything like that.
So it was a big deal that the prosecution was even considering saying he was innocent.
It was huge.
And then, the moment when the prosecutor, Cynthia Garza, she stands up and says they're dismissing all charges because Ben is actually innocent.
Oh, man, I bet that was powerful.
I get chills just thinking about it.
Can you imagine, like, the prosecutor, representing the state of Texas, she's standing there and admitting this huge mistake, and then she apologizes to Ben, like, personally.
Wow.
Her voice cracks, tears,
Yeah.
they even hug. It was a huge moment. For everyone listening, I mean, a prosecutor hugging a man she helped put in prison, that's a powerful image.
Yeah. It's like things are really changing. And the judge, Leela Mays, she did something really unusual too.
What'd you do?
Well, she talked about how the system failed Ben, and then she actually left the bench to shake his hand.
Wow.
Like he's finally a free man, officially.
That's not something you see every day in court.
Not at all. It really shows how much this moment meant. And then the courtroom, like everyone starts clapping.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it's so rare to hear applause in a courtroom.
Yeah. It's usually like super serious.
It really felt like everyone was relieved, like a wrong had been righted.
It's like, even in this formal setting, that human element just broke through.
Yeah, absolutely. And after all that, when Ben finally spoke, it was incredible. He didn't focus on himself,
That's amazing.
His first thought was for the victim, Jeffrey Young, and his family. He said they were victims too because the real killer was never caught.
After all he went through, his first thought is for the victim's family.
Yeah,
That says a lot about his character.
it does.
Mhm.
He even asked everyone to remember the Young family. It was a powerful reminder that this crime had a much bigger impact.
Yeah. It's hard to even grasp. So what about compensation? Like, was he able to get anything for all those years he lost?
Yeah, so Texas actually has a system for wrongful convictions. Ben got a $2.7 million lump sum. That's $80,000 for each of the 34 years he was in prison.
Wow.
Plus, he gets another $80,000 every year for the next 34 years.
Okay.
And free health care.
It's something, right?
Yeah, but it's important to remember, no amount of money can replace 34 years of his life.
Absolutely. He missed so much, his son growing up, everything.
It's true. And what's really remarkable to me is that even after getting all that money, Ben went back to work.
Really?
Yeah, he went back to his job as a facilities engineer.
Wow. Guess he wants some normalcy after all that.
I think so. It wasn't easy for him to find work after he was first released, because of the conviction. But a man named Craig Hall gave him a chance.
That's great. Good for him.
Yeah.
So what about accountability? Like, did anyone who was involved in the original, wrongful conviction, did anyone ever admit they were wrong?
Well, one of the key witnesses from Ben's trial, a woman named Gladys, she never changed her story.
Really?
Even though there were questions about her memory and her statements over the years, she stuck to her original story.
Wow.
The DA even tried to talk to her during their investigation, but they couldn't get anywhere.
It makes you think, what would make someone stick to a story like that,
It does. There's so much we don't know about what happened back then.
Yeah, for sure. But it really raises some serious questions about how reliable that original testimony even was.
Oh, definitely. And it's worth mentioning that Attorney General Merrick Garland actually met Ben at a book event and apologized to him.
Why? Really?
Yeah, on behalf of the U.S. government.
That's huge.
It was a powerful acknowledgement of the injustice that happened. People were saying that Garland even had tears in his eyes.
I guess it just shows that even at the highest levels of government, these cases, they have a real human impact.
Yeah, they do. Now, it's interesting. Ben seems to have adjusted back to normal life pretty well, which isn't always the case,
Yeah, I've heard that a lot of people who are wrongfully convicted, they really struggle to adjust after being in prison for so long.
Yeah. But Ben, he described it as just getting back to the life he should have had all along.
That's incredible. That resilience is amazing. After all those years, to be able to just bounce back like that.
Yeah, it really is. And he's not stopping there. He and the author of Bringing Ben Home, they're going around talking about wrongful conviction.
That's awesome.
They're speaking at law schools, churches, even to DAs directly, trying to change the system.
That's so important. It's like
Yeah.
they're turning their experience into something positive.
Exactly. They're trying to prevent this from happening to anyone else, and they're getting a lot of attention. Universities like William and Mary, Notre Dame, GW, they're all interested in hearing their story. There have even been talks with Harvard.
Wow.
So it seems like people are starting to realize how important this issue is.
It's about time, right?
It is. And someone compared Ben's story to, like, Rosa Parks and George Floyd.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Because they all represent a much bigger issue. Like, they make these huge systemic problems feel more real.
I see. Yeah, because when you hear about systemic injustice, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around.
It's abstract.
But when you see it happening to a real person like Ben, then it hits you differently.
Exactly. It's no longer just an idea. So the book, it goes into a lot of detail about what went wrong in Ben's case,
Yeah.
like problems with the police, the prosecutors, the judges. But the author, they don't really point fingers. They say some of it was tunnel vision, confirmation bias, especially in those high-pressure murder cases.
I mean, that makes sense. Everyone makes mistakes, especially when they're under pressure.
Yeah. And sometimes, even experienced people, they can get so focused on one idea, they miss other things.
Totally. And that's why it's so important for everyone in the system to be aware of those biases.
And for prosecutors to be willing to say, hey, we don't have enough evidence, we're not going forward with this case.
Yeah, even if it's not popular. They have to put fairness first.
Exactly. And when you think about it, it's kind of crazy how many things had to go right for Ben to be exonerated. Like Centurion Ministries, they were dedicated to his case.
Yeah.
He had lawyers working pro bono, the media picked up his story, and then there was a new DA who was willing to look at everything again. It makes you wonder, should it be that hard to get justice?
That's a really good question. Like, it shouldn't be about luck, right? It should be about fairness.
Right. And luckily, there are some positive changes happening, like forensic science is getting better, D&I testing, things like that.
That's good.
And even things like airbag swabbing in car accidents, they're getting more sophisticated.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then there are new laws like the Innocence Protection Act. So there's hope that these things will prevent wrongful convictions in the future.
Hopefully, yeah. But it's not just about technology and laws, right? It's about the people in the system, too.
Oh, definitely.
They have to be committed to getting it right, to protecting innocent people.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what do you think are the key takeaways for our listeners?
Well, I think, first of all, we have to understand how much damage a wrongful conviction can cause. It's not just the person in prison. It's their family, their whole community.
Yeah.
And Ben's story, it shows that you can never give up on the truth, no matter how long it takes.
Absolutely. And I think it's a reminder that even though our justice system is supposed to be fair, mistakes can happen.
And they do happen. And that's why we have to keep fighting for change to make the system better.
For me, one of the most powerful moments was when the prosecutor, Cynthia Garza, apologized to Ben.
Yeah, me too.
It really showed the human side of all this. And the fact that Ben's first thought after being freed was for the victim's family, that says a lot about him.
It really does. And so for everyone listening, we have to ask ourselves, do we really believe that our justice system is perfect?
Yeah.
And if it's not, what can we do to make it better?
That's a great question to think about. And if you want to learn more about Ben's story, I highly recommend checking out the book, Bringing Ben Home.
For sure. It's an amazing read.